Cars often carry legacies that outlive their production cycles. Some become timeless icons, cherished for their design, performance, or cultural influence. Others, however, are remembered for all the wrong reasons: poor engineering, bad timing, questionable styling, or safety controversies that turn them into cautionary tales. Nostalgia can sometimes cloud judgment, leading automakers, enthusiasts, or collectors to romanticize vehicles that, in truth, never lived up to expectations. While history often forgives flaws, the automotive world has its fair share of models that earned their reputation not for brilliance, but for failure. These were cars that stumbled at launch, disappointed in execution, or became infamous for reasons that should never have been repeated. Today, we're going to revisit 10 classic cars that many argue should have been left in the past. Cars that, despite their place in history, remind us that not every design deserves a comeback. Number 10. Chevrolet Corvair. The Chevrolet Corvair remains one of the most polarizing cars ever produced by an American manufacturer. General Motors launched it in 1960 with the ambition of competing against stylish, efficient European imports. Instead of sticking to the typical American formula, the Corvair arrived with an air-cooled flat-six engine tucked neatly in the rear. It was a radical move in an era when different wasn't always welcome, but the drama wasn't far behind. The Corvair's swing-axle rear suspension turned out to be a ticking time bomb for drivers who dared to corner too aggressively. The handling quirks weren't just minor inconveniences, they could turn dangerous in the blink of an eye. Ralph Nader's scathing 1965 book, Unsafe at Any Speed, zeroed in on the Corvair, branding it as a public menace and painting GM as careless with safety. That book not only crushed the Corvair's reputation, but also helped launch the modern consumer safety movement. To be fair, later versions of the Corvair did get better. Engineers corrected the suspension flaws and even delivered smoother, more predictable handling. Unfortunately, the damage was already baked into the car's image. Buyers turned away, and the model fizzled out by the end of the decade. Today, Corvair loyalists argue it was misunderstood, pointing to its unique engineering and distinctive style. While that defense has merit, the wider narrative doesn't change. The Corvair lives on as a case study in how innovation without proper execution can backfire spectacularly. It wasn't just a car, it became a cautionary lesson for the entire industry. Boldness is admirable, but when safety gets lost in the mix, even the most daring ideas can turn into reputational nightmares. Number 9. Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto should have been a simple success story. Introduced in 1971, it was built to be small, affordable, and practical. Exactly what the market demanded. On the surface, it looked like a straightforward competitor to imports that were gaining popularity. Beneath the shiny brochures, though, the Pinto carried a flaw so severe that it became a symbol of negligence. Its fuel tank was mounted in a position that left it frighteningly vulnerable. Even moderate rear-end collisions could rupture the tank, spraying fuel and transforming accidents into deadly infernos. The real scandal wasn't just the flawed design, but Ford's internal decision-making. Documents revealed that the company knew the danger, yet chose to gamble with human lives rather than pay for a safer redesign. Their cost-benefit analysis suggested it was cheaper to settle lawsuits than improve the car. The public backlash was enormous once the truth surfaced. Lawsuits mounted, headlines flared, and the Pinto's name burned its way into infamy. While over 3 million Pintos rolled off the line, its reputation was destroyed beyond repair. The car became shorthand for corporate greed, where profits were prioritized over people. What makes the Pinto's story even more fascinating is how ordinary it otherwise was. Its design wasn't revolutionary, its performance wasn't remarkable, and its styling wasn't memorable. The only reason it's remembered today is because of what it represented. Instead of being another bland entry in Ford's history, it became a cultural warning sign. Some collectors now embrace the Pinto as kitsch nostalgia, but its story remains unsettling. It stands as an eternal reminder that when automakers cut corners, the fallout is not measured in profits, but in lives. That legacy can't be polished away, no matter how many quirky fan clubs pop up. Number 8. AMC Pacer. Few cars split opinions as dramatically as the AMC Pacer. When it hit the market in 1975, AMC proudly called it the car of the future. The design was unlike anything else on the road. Wide stance, unusual proportions, and glass panels so massive they gave passengers an aquarium-like view. It was bold, it was strange, and it turned heads everywhere it went. Unfortunately, most of those heads weren't nodding in admiration. The Pacer's bulbous shape earned plenty of puzzled looks. Some buyers loved the quirkiness, while others couldn't unsee its awkwardness. And the looks weren't the only problem. Beneath its futuristic skin, the Pacer was weighed down with old-fashioned engineering. Its heavy build demanded more power, but AMC's engines struggled to deliver. Fuel economy was poor at exactly the moment buyers were desperate for efficiency during the oil crisis. AMC had originally planned to equip the Pacer with a rotary engine, which could have added some much-needed excitement. But those plans fell through. What remained was a car that looked forward, but drove like it belonged in the past. Comfort issues, underwhelming performance, and lack of refinement sealed its fate. Despite its shortcomings, the Pacer somehow managed to carve out a pop culture niche. Its memorable cameo in Wayne's World gave it a second life as a lovable oddball. To enthusiasts, it's a rolling piece of eccentric Americana. To most, though, it's proof that unconventional styling doesn't automatically mean innovation. The AMC Pacer's legacy isn't one of triumph, but of curiosity. It stands as a reminder that being different only works if the substance matches the style. Otherwise, the result is less car of the future and more what were they thinking. Number 7. Dodge Omni/Plymouth Horizon. The Dodge Omni and its twin, the Plymouth Horizon, arrived in 1978 with a simple mission: deliver compact, fuel-efficient hatchbacks for a market shaken by rising fuel prices. With input from Volkswagen engineers, Chrysler seemed poised to finally offer something that could rival the popular European imports. The concept was practical and timely. The execution, however, left plenty to be desired. At first glance, the Omni and Horizon ticked the right boxes. They were affordable, economical, and offered the versatility of a hatchback design. For buyers who just needed a straightforward commuter, these cars provided a sensible option. The problem? They lacked any spark of personality. Driving them was about as exciting as waiting in line at the DMV. On top of their bland character, the quality was inconsistent at best. Owners frequently dealt with electrical issues, questionable build quality, and long-term durability concerns. In an era when buyers were expecting compact cars to feel nimble and lively, Chrysler's offering simply felt uninspired. They did the job, but with no flair, leaving little reason for anyone to remember them fondly. Still, the Omni and Horizon played a role in keeping Chrysler afloat during difficult times. Their low price and practicality meant they sold in respectable numbers, even if they weren't admired. Over time, they faded into the background, overshadowed by more memorable competitors and completely absent from most lists of desirable classics. Today, spotting one is rare, and nostalgia hasn't exactly elevated their status. They're remembered as cars that did what they were supposed to do, nothing more, nothing less. The Omni and Horizon remind us that not every car earns a place in history. Sometimes, the only legacy is proving that practicality without character can make a car vanish from memory almost entirely. Number 6. Ford Mustang II. When the Mustang II arrived in 1974, it carried the heavy burden of living up to one of the most beloved names in automotive history. Instead of roaring with muscle, though, it crept in with restraint. Downsized for the oil crisis era, this version ditched the raw power of its predecessors and was built on the Pinto platform. That fact alone guaranteed endless ridicule from purists. The Mustang II was pitched as the right car for the times, compact, more fuel-efficient, and easier to maneuver in congested cities. It sounded sensible, but Mustang fans weren't looking for sensible. They wanted adrenaline, not austerity. With underwhelming 4- and 6-cylinder engines, plus uninspired handling, the two felt more like a compromise than a continuation of a legend. Strangely enough, the car sold very well when new. Buyers were spooked by rising fuel prices and eager for something smaller, so the Mustang II actually made financial sense. But selling well and being remembered fondly are two very different things. Among enthusiasts, the two quickly became shorthand for everything a Mustang shouldn't be. Over the years, collectors have softened a little. Some admit that the Mustang II has a certain charm as a time capsule of 1970s automotive reality. Its design reflected the anxieties of its era, and not every car can claim that. Still, when lined up against the powerhouse Mustangs that came before and after, it's clear why the two gets little love. Ultimately, the Mustang II remains the awkward middle child of the lineup. Not disastrous enough to be fascinating, not brilliant enough to be celebrated. It's remembered mostly as the car that reminded everyone what they were missing. Number 5. Chrysler/Dodge Colt. The Chrysler and Dodge Colt were born out of necessity, not inspiration. During the 1970s fuel crunch, Chrysler needed a compact, economical car to stay relevant. Instead of designing something groundbreaking, they struck a deal with Mitsubishi and rebadged its models for the American market. Thus, the Colt arrived, practical, reliable, and utterly forgettable. On paper, the Colt made sense. It was light, inexpensive, and reasonably efficient. For families stretched thin by gas prices, it served its role without fuss. But cars that stand the test of time usually offer something beyond just serviceable. The Colt had no standout personality. It wasn't fun like a Honda Civic, stylish like a Volkswagen Rabbit, or durable like a Toyota Corolla. It lived permanently in the middle, a generic solution when buyers wanted more than transportation. Because of its Mitsubishi roots, the Colt avoided some of Chrysler's quality control headaches, but it also lacked a clear identity. To American buyers, it didn't feel like a Chrysler at all. It was just another import hiding under a domestic badge. Enthusiasts took note. and history wasn't kind. Oddly enough, today the Colt has found a tiny cult following among fans of obscure 1980s cars. Its turbocharged variants are occasionally celebrated, and collectors appreciate its simplicity. Still, for most people, the Colt is just a hazy memory of the era when badge engineering became Chrysler's lifeline. Looking back, the Colt's greatest contribution might be reminding automakers that character matters. It proved you can sell a car that's competent but uninspired, but nobody's going to remember it warmly. The Colt was practical enough in its time, but as an artifact of automotive history, it remains more footnote than headline. Number 4. Renault Le Car. In the late 1970s, Renault decided Americans needed a taste of European compact motoring. Enter the Renault Le Car, a quirky little import that promised efficiency and charm. Unfortunately, the charm didn't quite translate. Where rivals like the Volkswagen Rabbit and Honda Civic won fans with clever engineering and reliability, the Le Car stumbled with awkward looks and questionable build quality. In France, the same model, known as the Renault 5, was a modest success, buzzing through cities with efficiency and practicality. But when repackaged for the US, it lost much of its appeal. The styling looked out of place, its engines lacked punch, and parts availability quickly became a nightmare. For American buyers already skeptical of French cars, the Le Car confirmed their suspicions. Performance was far from inspiring. With limited horsepower and sluggish acceleration, even daily commuting could feel like a chore. Combine that with awkward ergonomics and inconsistent quality, and the car developed a reputation that overshadowed any small strengths it had. To its credit, the Le Car did bring a bit of eccentricity to American roads. Some enthusiasts now look back at it with affection, seeing it as an oddball survivor of a time when global automakers were experimenting with US tastes. Pop culture references occasionally keep it alive, but mostly in the so bad it's interesting category. Today, spotting one on the road feels like seeing an artifact that slipped through the cracks of history. The Le Car never earned the admiration its makers hoped for, but it did leave behind a lesson. Not every European success can cross the Atlantic unscathed. In the crowded field of imports, the Le Car proved forgettability can be its own legacy. Number 3. Ford Edsel. When Ford unveiled the Edsel in 1957, they believed they were introducing the future of motoring. Instead, they created one of the most infamous flops in automotive history. The launch was drenched in hype, promising cutting-edge features and bold styling. What buyers got was a confusing, overpriced car with a face only a marketer could love. The Edsel's most mocked feature was its vertical grille, often compared to anything but a normal car design. It instantly polarized the public, making the car look awkward at best. Worse, the Edsel didn't deliver anything unique under the skin. Despite the advertising, its technology was far from revolutionary, leaving customers wondering what all the noise was about. Timing made everything worse. The car debuted during an economic downturn, when buyers were trimming budgets. Positioned awkwardly between Ford's mainstream models and luxury offerings, the Edsel lacked a clear audience. Add in early production issues and inconsistent quality, and disaster was inevitable. Sales collapsed almost immediately, and the Edsel name became synonymous with failure. In just a few short years, Ford killed the brand, leaving behind warehouses full of unsold cars and an unforgettable black eye. Over time, Some enthusiasts have tried to rescue the Edsel's image, pointing to its rarity and unique design. Certain collectors even treat it as a prized oddity. But for most people, the Edsel is remembered as a cautionary tale. A car that promised too much, delivered too little, and arrived at precisely the wrong moment. In the end, the Edsel isn't just a failed car, it's a symbol of marketing hubris. Ford wanted a revolution. What they got instead was one of the most enduring punchlines in automotive history. Number 2. Buick Apollo/Oldsmobile Omega. In the 1970s, General Motors leaned heavily on badge engineering to fill its showrooms. Few examples were more obvious than the Buick Apollo and Oldsmobile Omega, both thinly disguised versions of the Chevrolet Nova. On paper, this strategy made sense. Reuse engineering, cut costs, and stretch a successful model across multiple brands. In practice, it produced cars that felt uninspired and unnecessary. The Nova at least had a certain credibility. It was straightforward, practical, and carried a reputation as a dependable compact. But when Buick and Oldsmobile introduced their clones, buyers quickly noticed they weren't getting anything new. Just the same car with different badges and slightly tweaked trim. Paying more for less never goes over well. The Apollo and Omega weren't disasters in terms of performance or reliability. They were functional, got the job done, and met the needs of the era. The problem was that they offered no reason to exist beyond padding GM's lineup. They lacked originality, excitement, and the brand identity buyers expected. This kind of redundancy weakened GM's reputation over time. By diluting its brands with cookie-cutter products, the company eroded trust and left customers confused about what distinguished one division from another. The Apollo and Omega serve as prime examples of how laziness in design can hurt even established names. Today, these cars are rare, but rarity doesn't always equal desirability. Collectors see them as curiosities rather than treasures. They remain symbols of a period when quantity mattered more than creativity, and when cost-cutting overshadowed character. The Apollo and Omega weren't failures in execution. They were failures in imagination. Their legacy proves that a car can work mechanically, yet fail completely in meaning. Number 1. Pontiac Fiero. When Pontiac launched the Fiero in 1984, it sounded like a dream come true. A mid-engine, affordable sports car designed for everyday drivers. For enthusiasts, it promised a taste of exotic engineering at a fraction of the price. Unfortunately, the reality didn't live up to the excitement. Early Fieros were fitted with underwhelming four-cylinder engines that delivered more commuter car vibes than sports car thrills. Handling wasn't much better, with suspension components borrowed from Pontiac's economy cars. Buyers expecting a sharp, nimble machine were left disappointed. Then came the infamous fires. Due to design flaws and maintenance issues, some Fieros literally went up in smoke. While not every car was affected, the headlines were devastating. For a car already struggling to prove itself, the reputation damage was irreversible. Ironically, just as Pontiac began improving the Fiero with more powerful V6 engines and better handling, the damage was done. Sales dropped, and in 1988, just when the car was becoming genuinely competitive, the plug was pulled. The Fiero ended not with a bang, but with a sigh of what could have been. Despite its flaws, the Fiero still has a devoted fan base. Collectors appreciate its daring concept, and modified versions showcase the potential it never fully realized. It holds a strange place in history, Not a total disaster, but a textbook case of a great idea sabotaged by rushed execution. The Fiero's legacy is bittersweet. It showed that bold ideas need proper development, and that reputation can collapse faster than sales charts can recover. Pontiac aimed for affordable innovation. Instead, they ended up with one of the most famous almost cars in automotive history. Every car tells a story, some of triumph, others of failure. The 10 models we've discussed today serve as reminders that not every automotive idea deserves a second chance. While nostalgia often tempts us to reimagine the past, these vehicles show that certain mistakes are best left as lessons, not legacies. If you enjoyed this deep dive into automotive history, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Which of these cars do you think deserves to stay gone? And are there any others you'd add to this list? Don't forget to give this video a like, share it with fellow car enthusiasts, and subscribe to the channel for more in-depth automotive content. Your support helps us keep exploring the stories that shape the industry, for better or worse.